And we're live. Welcome everyone to another fabulous episode of the iSpring Leadership Series. And today we have a really fun, I'll say creative topic that we're going to discuss for the e-learning professional, and that is innovation and creativity. And we have, I think, one of the leading experts in innovation and creativity with us, Tamara Kleinberg. And Tamara, tell us who you are and what you do.
Yeah, so first of all, I just noticed that our couches match. We're like orange to orange. It's so great.
I love the orange.
So I'm Tamara. So I'm the founder of a company called the Shuuk. And basically what the Shuuk does is serve the innovation spectrum. So kind of we think of it as on the left, it's how do I, as an individual or as a team, organization, become more innovative. In the middle is how do I get my innovation out into the world? How do I get buy-in? How do I get it taken to the next level? And then on the right side is how do I test that innovation and tweak it and edit it to make it successful. And so kind of our overriding moonshot, our dream in this world is to unleash 1 million more innovative minds, because we think that if that's possible, then we can get a lot more accomplished together.
That's such a cool, and okay, you have to fill us in on, because I know what the Shuuk means or the kind of meaning behind it, but explain what that is if people aren't familiar, if their Hebrew isn't up to date.
I know, I always get, nobody says it right, and I always get questions about the name. So Shuuk in Hebrew is an open marketplace. But the thing about these places is it's not kind of the way we see them in the U.S., where it's kind of a flea market or maybe only on Saturdays and Sundays. They're really these hubs of their community where these entrepreneurs and innovators go and sell their wares. And, you know, when I was a kid, that was CDs and olives, you know, and crazy things like that. But, you know, the community goes and, you know, they get their bread for the weekend and they debate politics and come up with new ideas. So it's this really energetic hub and this place where innovation thrives. And you know, I've got these beautiful memories from childhood of going there every weekend. And I wanted to create that in my business online and in the real world here as well. So that's where the name comes from. And you know, we're really fortunate. We get to work with a lot of organizations and I think a lot of thought leaders on how do you become more innovative, and then secondly, how do you make more innovation happen around you so that it actually ignites change.
That's cool. Yeah, because
it's Then that's something that your company talks about, something called an IQE, an Innovation Quotient Edge, which is a way to bring more innovation into their work and life. So can you kind of describe what that is and how they can use that in their work? Yeah,
and we'll have to talk about your guys' results because I know that you took it. So basically, over the last 20 years, I have been doing a ton of research and data gathering. I've worked with, you know, everyone from Procter & Gamble to Disney to the U.S. Army Innovation Labs. And over that period, I've been collecting kind of this, what makes people innovative and what helps that unleash in people for a lot of reasons. One is, how do you perform at your peak? And when you're being innovative, I think we all know when we're in that moment of being a little more creative, we tend to come up with better ideas, we tend to get more done, right? We work smarter, not harder, so we save time. So I wanted to figure out how that was possible. How could everybody unleash more innovation? So over these last 20 years, I've been collecting all this information, and what I found was that everybody has an innovation quotient edge, right? Something that makes them uniquely innovative. And there's actually, and I won't go, based on time, I won't go into all 9 triggers, but basically there's 9 triggers of innovation. And the combination of 2 become your unique style and strength of innovation so that you can train your brain to be innovative on demand. And so I'll give you an example of myself. I'll just throw myself under the bus. Just like a little story. But you know, I always thought that my innovation came from being collaborative. That's one of the triggers. And collaborative people are, it's not just because they work well with others. I say we're all relationship people in the work that we do, but they actually get ideas by talking to a lot of different people, right? They recognize that ideas are never fully formed and that everybody has a piece of the pie. And they're also very magnetic, but they're pulling it from all these different places. So I always thought I was that person, so I was working in that mode. But it turns out, and I kind of blew myself away with my own results, that's not me. That's actually my dormant trigger. I'm actually all about experiential, which is all about in the moment feeling and touching and doing, and that's how I innovate. And when I realized that about myself, I was able to say, okay, you know what, I'm not going to play over here because that's not how I do it. I'm going to play over here. And so it allowed me to work at a much higher level and a much more creative level because I was doing it the way I wanted to do it, and that was playing to my strength. So we created this IQE so that everybody could see how they innovate, and then they could also have the tools to do more of it. So Gina, what was yours? Do you remember, Taylor?
Yeah, I was a maverick, which I was not surprised.
No, I'm not surprised at all.
I always think that means I'm the rebel and I'm unemployable.
Well, here's the thing about mavericks, right? So mavericks are there's mavericks, there's champions, and there's agents. Mavericks are the ones who are not just the forest through the trees, but kind of way up, head in the sky, kind of blue skies thinkers. The champions are the ones who really foster and promote innovation, and the agents are ones who innovate by doing, right? Yeah, is that you, Taylor, like way on the back end?
Champion.
So we often think that agents aren't innovative because they're the doers, but they are, just on the back end of the spectrum. And like to give you an example, I had an organization I worked with, and they came to me and they said, here's our problem. We have too many ideas, but we're not getting anything done. So what did they have? They had all mavericks and all futuristic thinkers in the room. So no wonder they couldn't get anything done. They were great idea people, but there was no one to move the needle because they weren't balanced in their teams.
Interesting.
Yeah.
So now, in your work, do you have teams take this and then, similar to the strengths, kind of look at how they can each work better together? Or is it for me to look at how I can stay in an innovative or creative state longer?
So it's both. So I have some people who take it individually because they want to figure out how to have a stronger voice at the table, how to bring more innovative solutions to the table. So one of the things we find with people when they take this and when they understand how they innovate, because truly everybody is innovative in some way, it's just a matter of figuring out how. But once they figure that out, they bring more of those innovative solutions to the table, they become a higher value team member and have a stronger voice. So when you're working inside an organization, you kind of feel like I'm just not being heard or I'm not getting my ideas pushed through.
Right.
It tends to be because we really don't know how we innovate and how to make that voice stronger. So that's one. And then with teams, it really is about how do you get the right people doing the right things. So this isn't a personality test like some of those, kind of big ones, but it really more is, how does the team innovate and how do we work together and are we all working in the right ways that serve our innovation? Because truly, and I think we know this, the three of us on here as kind of business owners and, whether we're actually really leaders or employees, we hire people and we work with people for solutions and ideas that move the needle. We don't hire people, we don't work with people to do the base minimum, to do the commodity. Right. So, you want people recognizing how they innovate on your team because then everybody's playing at that higher place.
That is interesting. Something you said about selling your ideas or getting buy-in and the language we use, because I do think that is in the e-learning and really any in the training, learning arena, I feel like you're always having to sell your ideas or you're having to sell why that idea that they came up with won't work. Or,
not good.
Yeah. Talk to us about that. You said there's something that you can do, the language of innovation, or...
Yeah, so there's really two things. So the first thing is kind of related to the IQE, and that is if I know how you innovate and how you think, I can communicate in a way that's going to really speak to you. So for example, if you are a futuristic, that's one of your power triggers, and that's kind of what your results say, and I come to you and I say, hey Gina, I have this idea, here's the data to prove it. I've actually shut you down. Well, that seems like the right thing to do. Your brain is in the future. But if I come to you and I say, hey Gina, I have this idea, here's how I think it's going to look in the future, then now I've got your attention. So it's important to understand how other people innovate so you can talk to them. If their experiential is one of the triggers, so that's me. And experience is all about, and that's you, right? So it's all about the doing and in the moment, and you got to have your hands on, and you have to really experience it. So it's happened before. Someone on my team came to me and said, I think in theory this will work. And I said, well, prove it to me. Because you're never going to get buy-in from me by a theory or assumptions or a model.
Right.
You got to show me a little bit of proof. You better have tried it once and then shown it to me. So if you want to get buy-in from people, understanding how they innovate is going to help you sell your ideas forward because you can communicate with them. So that's the first thing. The second thing is around the language of innovation. So here's kind of the lesson I've had, and this was a hard slap across the face because I was doing it wrong, and I won't go into the whole story except to say that I was working with Johnson & Johnson, the big baby care company, and all of our ideas got shut down, and they were great ideas. But I realized something. I realized that my language was wrong, and that innovation has its own language. So here's what we do normally. I say, all right, Taylor, I have this idea for a cup. So it automatically heats up your coffee to the right temperature at any time, and if I can even add extra milk, and if I want it cold, it can do that too. And then what I say is, what do you think? So you may love the idea, you may hate the idea, but what I've actually done is forced you into an up or down vote. You either love it or you hate it. That's all I've given you. I haven't given you the opportunity to come along for the journey with me. So what I want people to do out there is I want them to switch their language of innovation so they get buy-in. And the key to that is getting other people engaged in the conversation. So, and you know, we've all had that moment, right, where we're in that meeting, we're like, oh my God, this idea is brilliant, what do you think? And we think the idea stands on its own.
Right.
It never does. And they look at you
what
like,
do you think is a bad question.
So
Yeah.
right, so I think we present it wrong. So here's what I think. Here's kind of 3 language tricks that you can use. And they get people, they're really powerful and they get people involved. So the first one is I'll say, okay, Taylor, so I have this idea for a coffee cup and it does this. What would you do to improve the idea?
Okay.
So now, right, your wheels are turning and you're like, oh, I don't automatically hate it or love it. I'm going to think about how to make it better so I can get buy-in. Or you can say, and this is really great with the analytic types, the ones who, you know, those yes butters who no matter what you say, it's always, well, here's the problem with that, here's the problem with that. So we try to, the mistake we make in innovation is we try to ignore them, but we need them. We can't do innovation in a silo. So what I say to those people, and I've got a few on my team because I need them, I say, hey, Gina, so I've got this idea. What holes do you see, and how would you fix them?
Oh, because they're going to be looking for that anyway with that filter of I need to find something wrong to fix.
Right, exactly. So, and I think this is particularly important for those internal groups like the e-learning, learning and development, CIOs that I was just with. It is so important that we sell our ideas forward, but we have to have a language, and they don't get it really isn't enough. We've got to figure out how to switch how we talk. And, you know, innovation has its own rhythm, its own kind of, you know, language to it. So if we can figure that out, we can get a lot more buy-in.
Right. Okay, you said there were 3 questions. One was, what would you do to improve? What holes do you see in the idea, and what would you do, or is what would you do to fix it? The 3rd.
Yeah, I'm so glad you kept me on. Someone has to keep me on track, right?
This is gonna be a trivia question after.
No, right. So the 3rd one is, what would I need to tell you to make it a yes? Let them tell you.
I love that.
Yeah, let them tell you. And, you know, here's the bonus one that we talked about before we were recording that really works well. And you have to mean it, right? You got to be authentic about it. But I'll say, Gina, you know, something you said the other day about today being National Coffee Day gave me this thought for an idea. So link it back to something they've said already. You have to mean it, right? You don't want to be manipulative about it. But it's super powerful, and you know, we walk around with all these brilliant ideas. Every time I meet with people, they've got these nuggets of ideas, and I think particularly e-learning and learning and development teams, because they touch so many people across the organization, I think they have this great opportunity. They're hubs. They see patterns and things.
Right.
That buy-in part and understanding how innovation works becomes critical for them.
I love that, and again, looking at that, because I'm sure people come together, even if you're, you know, whether you're an independent consultant in the e-learning environment or you work within a team with a lot of people, you're still having to get a bunch of people together and create, and come up with solutions and be innovative with that. So I love that.
And the more you can be innovative, the more enjoyable your job is in reality. I mean, there's nothing worse than feeling like you're banging your head against the wall and that, you know, you're not quite coming up with a solution that makes things easier for your work or better or more productive or, you know, whatever your goal is. So innovation is that key. I think it's the difference between working harder and working smarter. And, you know, in our organization, we don't reward people for working hard. We reward them for working smart, because that's ultimately what's going to move the needle for us as a company.
Okay, something you said made me think of.
Oh, I like it already. See?
But-
But then I forgot what it was. No. Something you said. It, think of, oh, see, I did forget. Ah, I was going to ask you how. Well, I guess. Oh, I know what it is. I know what it is. Oh. What do you think kills innovation within an organization or within teams? What are some of the things that squelch that?
Yeah, that's a great question. I think it happens more often than we care to admit. I think there's a couple things. You know, innovation is one of these buzzwords that leadership always talks about. We need to be more innovative. We need to be more innovative. I think the number one roadblock, and there's kind of a few others we can talk about, is that they say that, but then they don't give their people their tools to be more innovative. So I can say that to you, but if I haven't given you some tools to make it just a little bit easier, it's probably going to fall short, because the truth is, before that, I shut all that stuff down. So for the last year, 2 years, I have not been innovative because I've just been trying to get through everything that I'm trying to get through, my to-do list. So I've shoved my creativity into a drawer, and then I pull it out, and it's dusty, and it doesn't work, and then I get frustrated, and then I don't go back to it. So if I'm in a leadership position in an organization, I think my first job is not to tell people to be innovative, is to give them some tools to do it and allow that to foster and grow. So I think that's the first thing. I think the second real hindrance to innovation is we don't reward innovative behaviors. What we tend to do is reward outcomes, not behaviors. So we wait until something succeeds or it fails, and we party for the successes, and we take those failures and we go, what a great lesson, don't do that again. And now I'm going to move you onto a project that's not so high profile. That's kind of how it works.
Right.
Nobody's going to take risks, which is part of being innovative, if they know those are the only two options at the end. So I want to reward people. My advice to the leaders out there is reward them for speaking up in the meeting when the consensus is going the other direction. Reward them for piloting something in the moment they're piloting it, not when it worked or didn't work.
Right.
To me, those are the big killers. And the third one I'd say, which is so basic, is we just don't allow our people to have the time to be creative and innovative. And like, I have this 50-10 rule, and that is for every 50 minutes of work, I do 10 minutes of something that sparks creativity in me, because I know I'm going to be more productive for the other 50. So it could be doodling, it could be walking around the block, it could be, there's a million things you can do. But I don't think we allow the time. We block our calendars to this insane amount, and it works against us in the end.
It's interesting, because lately I actually made this comment about I don't have white space. I feel like I'm so busy doing that I need to get in this space where you make more time to be creative and you come up with ideas and ways to solve problems. And I think that probably is a huge problem in organizations, is you have to schedule. Not to your fault. I mean, a lot of it is we get in a reactive mode and these things happen. You got to get them done. So there's no white space, and maybe that's where making yourself work out, exercise, go for walks, getting outside of your normal routine. I mean, Taylor's getting ready to run a 26-mile race.
The trail run.
I have a lot of white space this weekend.
There should be a lot of ideas coming on that run. That's all I can say. That's a long time.
I need to bring a notebook with me.
What, Taylor?
I should bring a notebook with me on the run. Write all my ideas down.
That is a great idea. I'm all about, one of the things I really believe strongly is that we have to validate our brains and say, yes, I want ideas. So one of the things that I do is, obviously I've got my apps, but I've also got a popcorn bucket on my desk, and every time I have an idea, I put it on the sticky note, and I put it in the popcorn bucket. And the ideas in there are crazy. I mean, there's ones for heated yoga mats in the winter to get your car. I mean, some of them make no sense, but it doesn't matter. I say, yes, thank you, brain, right? We need to kind of prime it. And then when I need it, it's there. And we kind of force ourselves into this thinking of, I only have creative ideas on that brainstorm at 3 p.m. when we have scented markers and easel pads. Which is ridiculous. Although I do love scented markers. Yes, oh my God, they're like corporate crack. I've got, every time I go to the store, I buy them all, and then they can't understand why they're sold out all the time.
Yeah.
But I want to be creative all the time, right? And I want my brain to know that that's okay, and I want to prime it just like, I'm hoping to anyway that you trained to go on your 26-mile run, right? So you're not off the couch. Please tell me you trained.
I forgot about it until 3 weeks ago, so. That's a true story.
I'll talk to you right after you do it.
I know. I'll talk to you because I'll be sitting down for the next 3 weeks.
Right? But you're going to have some brilliant ideas.
You'll have a lot of white space to be creative. Okay, so Tamara, when putting together learning programs, is there a way, when you're putting together something that is for the masses, how do you incorporate innovation or ways to help people be more creative with the way they learn? Is there?
Yeah. I think yes, and I think it's actually incredibly important. Us trying to relay our ideas or get other people to learn content in one mode is not effective for getting people to internalize it and remember it and really feel it. So I'll give you some examples of when I keynote. I do a lot of speaking across the globe. We only have 60 minutes, and it's really the same thing as kind of learning and development, right? I've got people with me, and I need to relay some kind of information that I need them to internalize.
Right.
So I do a lot of interactive exercises, and every time I have a point I want to make, a story I want to tell, a tool that I want them to use, I always ask myself, how could I get them to experience this in the moment? And so what I found is that when I do that, people actually internalize and remember and feel the point I'm trying to make. So I think when you're in learning development, if you can think about the kinesthetic, the auditory, the visual, and always ask yourself, how can I bring this to life in the moment? I think you'll have a much higher retention rate on the knowledge that you're trying to impart. And that's what I've seen with other people who are in training and development too, that I've worked with to help create more interactive experiences, is what they found on the back end is that people retained a lot more of the information, and oh, by the way, they enjoyed it so much they couldn't wait for the next training session. And isn't that a great problem to have?
Yeah. I'm sure that's one that very few people ever have.
Yeah. Well, I just worked with an ad agency with them to get these one-work sessions as the kickoff session to make them more innovative. And part of it was, how do we take this content we're trying to impart and make it more interesting and more interactive in a way that the client can really feel it? And sure enough, clients are really internalizing and using the tools that they're giving because they switched how they taught it. So I think innovation has a big part in how people learn too.
Right. That's true. So yeah. I can't believe it's already been... Oh, Taylor, question. You go.
I do. I have a question for you. So another way that you talk about increasing your innovation is tapping into your dormant triggers, or like you said, using that or being around that more helps you. And I just wanted to hear from you because I don't quite understand that.
What was your dormant? Do you remember? Do you have it?
Fluid. Is that one?
Yeah, fluid. Okay, so fluid is all about preferring a little more structure and a little more knowledge of what's coming, is how it shows up as a dormant. So here's the thing with kind of the IQE and the power and the dormant triggers. So the power triggers are your top two, the places that you play unbelievably well. They are your natural strengths, and you should do more to foster those. Your dormant one is the one where you play the least well. So it's not that you can't do it, it's that you have to work harder to play in that area. So for example, right, if your fluid is your dormant, for you, I would probably, and in fact I had a client that had this too, I would want them to make sure they partner up with someone who's fluid, who's really good at ambiguity and chaos and pulling that together. That's what they do well. And I'd want to make sure that if that's my dormant trigger, that I'm teamed up with someone like that, and that I'm exercising it a little bit, because I don't want it to become a weakness. But the point of it really is, hey, look, that's not your power play, so make sure that's not what you're putting your foot forward with, because you're going to probably fall a little bit short. Find your power triggers and use those because they're your natural strength. So you may not realize it because you're not exercising it enough right now, but it's there and it's powerful, and if you use them, you kind of go from here to here in your kind of creative juices overnight.
Yeah, I know. That was interesting to see because I don't know if I would have said that was my weakness, but it is something that I struggle with. So that was awesome to read over those.
Right. Which is why I think it's important to recognize that it's not like you are horrible at this. It's, hey, that's not your power play, so why make that the thing you focus on? If it's not your power play, don't focus on it. Focus on your power play. I'm a big believer in focusing on your strengths and not your weakness. So focus on your powers.
And if anyone in the audience right now in the live event has questions, definitely throw them into the Q&A area here, because we can ask Tamara your questions here. If you're watching the replay, you can definitely put the questions on our social media pages, and we'll get those answers for you as well. But Tamara, as we wrap up, how can people work with you if they want to tap into this and say, gosh, I'd love to learn more about this, or take the assessment, or, for our team? How can they find out more or get a hold of you?
Yep, so I would go to the Shuuk.com, so TheShuuk.com, and we have everything on there. A lot of my work revolves around keynotes and workshops and getting teams to get to that next level. And then we also have something called launch kits, so it's called the Innovator's Playbook, and there's links on the top and bottom of our site. And that's actually the thing I'm most excited about right now, because it's the Innovation Quotient Edge. So it's that plus a 7-video series on how to be the recognized innovator in your organization and ignite change, plus my ebook, which is like dozens and dozens of tools at your fingertips, plus a bunch of other stuff that is included. So that, to me, is a great starter place for people who want to figure out kind of how to start moving that needle.
Well, and we're going to put together, I'm going to go out on a limb here and say we're going to get one of those kits. We're going to do some sort of contest. We're going to have to come together, Taylor, and collaborate and brainstorm and get creative to come up with. And my weakest point is collaboration. So
that was your weakest?
Yeah, that was my weakest.
Yeah.
So,
you know what that means for people like us, because that's mine too? It means that we have ideas in our head, and as opposed to pulling it from every single person, it's more of the innovation happens individualistically. It doesn't mean we're not great people. It just means that it kind of comes from here out versus the other way. And wouldn't you say that's a little bit true, what I know about you, Gina?
Yeah, it is. I think I come up with ideas, and I tend to bring them to the table going, listen, let me tell you how great this idea is.
Now, you can make it better, like the people around you, but I'm the captain.
I need to do a better job of saying, so what would you do to improve the idea? Don't tell me it's already perfect. And what holes which I'm sure you've seen none.
Let me explain the ultimate idea. And when I say strengthen, I mean say yes.
Exactly. That's kind of how I bring ideas to the table. So I think that collaboration was my point of.
But they're always great, so you're right.
Yeah. What more can you improve on? That's usually how
I know a lot of people like you, like me, who are dormant collaborators when it comes to innovation, but we work incredibly well with other people. We're great partners.
Yeah.
So it's not to say that
we worked on a couple things together that I mean, it's like there's still something to that.
There's still a little folder on my computer that's like, one day Gina and I are going to get to these, and they're going to be game-changing.
Yeah. I mean, I think that's the key, too, is like some ideas are still simmering, and don't think that that's not being fostered maybe at work or with your team, that maybe it's just the timing isn't there yet, and a storm is brewing.
What's interesting, just really quickly, is I think futuristic was one of your power. And Taylor, if you listen to her language, it's all about what's possible in the future. It's not about the past. It's like, right? So your language is all this way, which makes perfect sense, right? So if I want to come to you with an idea, I want to say, like, here's how I envision it.
Yeah. And that's, you're right.
Works with her.
Yeah.
Well, I could talk about this all day. I love looking at ways we can be more creative, more innovative in our work and in the programs we put together for others to help others be more innovative. So I'm excited, and we'll come up with something really creative to get everyone in the iSpring audience thinking creatively and being innovative, and then we'll have a fabulous innovative kit as a prize.
Maybe, I don't know how you guys are set up, but maybe you could do a brainstorming session on how to do what innovative exercises, interactive stuff that they could create. Because I bet you, bouncing off each other, the ideas will get better and better and better.
Yeah, I think then people can actually keep building on that and vote for ideas and do things, and then we can pick. There you go. Look, I'm collaborating, people. I'm collaborating. You should be proud. You should be proud of me.
It's already working.
Well, thank you so much for your time, for your wisdom, for your brilliance, and thank you for everyone tuning in, because we are excited to take this and carry it on through the month, and we'll talk about innovation in learning and development. And stay tuned next month as we bring you another wonderful iSpring Leadership installment. So thank you, Tamara.
My pleasure. Thank you.
Bye, everyone.